The girl might be pregnant. I can't lose my family if she has the baby. I have to get rid of the body. What was her name? Iyana. She was 16. She was pregnant. 5 months. Talked niece Iyana into running away. Planned. Been telling her family doesn't love her. Had her come to my job, Ace Pick Apart, off of North Main Street. Why your job? The dumpster's at my job. I control what gets dumped. Did you kill her one day and dump her body the next? Yeah. They're going to give me the needle. Why? 1, premeditated murder. 2, young adult with an unborn child, 5 months. They consider that too. Did you shoot her? Did you shoot her in the head? No. Not head. Heart. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, those statements you will hear not only from the defendant's voice or through his own biological brother, Johnathan Quiles. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The state of Florida, Mr. Skinner and myself, my co-counsel, we appreciate the time and attention that you all have given already this week. And we appreciate the time and attention that you all will give for the remaining of the trial this week and next week. As you had heard during jury selection, the state has 2 things to prove. Was a crime committed, and was the defendant the one who committed the crime? And in this case, there's an indictment for 3 crimes that we're going to ask you all to consider. First-degree premeditated murder of IS, first-degree premeditated murder of her unborn child, and sexual battery. There will be material facts that your honor will instruct upon, and then you, as the fact finders, will weigh that evidence presented during the trial of whether or not the state of Florida has met that burden beyond a reasonable doubt to all of those material facts. Now we're about to go through a little synopsis because opening statements are not evidence. They are what we believe the evidence will show throughout the pendency of this case. And there's going to be several witnesses called and also many items of physical evidence. I like to use the analogy of you're starting off with a puzzle. That's where we're at today. We just purchased it at the store. We got the box. We're dumping out the pieces. We're laying it on the table. And one by one, state submits to you. Each piece will start to come into place. And then by end of the trial, that puzzle will be completed. So in thinking about, again, why we're here today. On December 19th, 2018, I'm going to say her name one time, but then I'm going to be using her initials. But Iyana Sawyer was 16 years old. She was 5 months pregnant. She was a high school student at Terry Parker. She was in the 10th grade. She went to school that day. However, she left school early. You will see video surveillance. the last time her family knew her to be alive, when she walked off of that school lot at approximately 11 a.m. For several hours, it was unknown that IS had left school. It was not known until you will hear she has a sister by the name, and I'll say her name one time, Iyana Sawyer. They were only 1 year apart. They went to the same school. They were set to ride the bus home that afternoon, but IS was not on that bus, and then that's what started the events of why we're here today. So I'm going to bring you back in time just a moment. You are going to hear some evidence from March of 2018. You are going to hear that IS had had a sexual relationship with a neighbor. IS, you will hear, was 15 at the time. You will also hear that the neighbor, his name was Kamar Humphrey, and that he was 20 years old at the time. The mom of IS and SS, you will also hear from, Kimberly Mobley. She found out, she reported it to police, and her 15-year-old daughter, IS, went through a sexual assault examination. That examination was sent to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. You're going to hear from an FDLE analyst by the name of Nicholas Kutu. He is the one that analyzed the various items in this case involving potential DNA evidence. He processed that case. He found the DNA, you will hear, of Kamar Humphrey. However, what you're also going to hear from that March 2018 sexual assault kit was another male's DNA that was found on the crotch interior area of her panties. IS comes back to the defendant. His DNA. Because you are going to hear the relationship between the defendant and IS is uncle and niece. The defendant at the time in 2018 was married to IS's aunt, Naomi Mobley. So it was an uncle by marriage. And at the time, back in 2018, the defendant was at the age of 32 and 33 based upon his birth date in April. However, when these results did not come right away in March, so it was unknown to the family at this time and to law enforcement that the defendant's DNA was there on a 15-year-old's panties of her uncle who was in his early 30s. Again, fast forwarding, July of 2018. It is learned that this is when IS becomes pregnant. This, though, was not learned by Kimberly Mobley till December 3rd of 2018. Her daughter was already approximately 5 months pregnant. Kimberly Mobley is going to tell you how her daughter was able to keep this from her. You're going to hear that she was tall, 5'8", however, she was quite thin. And it was, of course, the fall, getting to the winter time frame, and she was wearing hoodies. However, you're going to hear from Nancy Ware, who is the paternal grandmother of IS. And there's a lot of names, a lot of dates. Again, this will be through the course, and we'll tie it up at the end during closing arguments. Nancy Ware encouraged IS to tell her mother, Kimberly Mobley, about the pregnancy. So she finally tells her. However, IS will not say to her mother who the father is. So Kimberly Mobley takes her daughter, after learning on December 3rd, that her 16-year-old daughter is pregnant. Obviously, at the time of conception, she was 15, because you're going to hear that IS's birth date was September the 6th, 2002. So in July of 2018, she would have been 15. By the time December 2018, she was 16. Kimberly Mobley sets up her first appointment to find out about the pregnancy. You are going to hear from Dr. Amanda Atchew. She is the doctor that had that appointment, and that appointment was on December the 13th of 2018. So 10 days after learning. Dr. Atchew is going to tell you all that she was approximately 22 and a half weeks pregnant. She also sent off to find out the gender, which was followed through, as Kimberly Mobley also. She was there present at all of the appointments. And it was determined that she was going to have a girl. And in fact, you are going to hear that the family had already named the unborn child of IS. Her name was going to be...
Objection, Your Honor. Legal basis? Speculation and inflaming the jury. Overruled.
May it please the court. That her name was going to be Hazel Michelle. And that is important, ladies and gentlemen, because that's count 2. We are alleging that the defendant killed an unborn child. And you're going to hear that the approximate birth date, due date, was April the 12th of 2019. Then, thinking about that time frame in December, confirmation of pregnancy on December 13th, it's spreading now through the family of Kimberly Mobley, because you're going to hear Kimberly Mobley has a large family. She has 4 sisters. She has a brother. And of course, you've already heard that one of her sisters, Naomi, was married at the time to the defendant. So the news of IS being pregnant is now through the family. It is now learned. Kimberly Mobley is trying to find out who the father is. She will not disclose. So in thinking about that, you're also going to hear from Nancy Ware. Again, that is the paternal grandmother. You are going to hear from Jametta Mobley, Margie Mobley, in regards to the family dynamic, in regards to the communication aspect, because Kimberly Mobley is going to tell you all that when she did the math of December 13th back to 22 and a half weeks, it was approximately the time frame of July 7th weekend. And Kimberly Mobley is going to tell you that weekend was of an important weekend because that is the grandmother's birthday. Mother of Kimberly Mobley, grandmother of IS. And that Kimberly Mobley is going to tell you all that that time frame after that party, that her daughter had went and stayed at the defendant's house. That's where she put the math back. Because what you're also going to hear is that Naomi Mobley and the defendant, they had a daughter at the time. Her name was Nia. And you're also going to hear that Naomi was the breadwinner. She's the one that had the full-time job. Now, the defendant worked. Please, I'm not trying to say that he didn't. But she had the full-time job that kept her out of the house quite a bit. So, IS and ISS, while their mother, Kimberly Mobley, would be at work, they would go often to the home of the defendant. You're going to hear that IS was a creature of habit. She would go to school. She would come home. Sometimes she would go to her father, Willie Sawyer's house. You will hear from him as well. He's also here locally in the area. But mainly school, home, and the defendant's home. The defendant would be watching over them while their aunt and their mom was at work. And then they would also help with the young daughter of the defendant, their baby cousin. And you're going to hear that this was throughout a period of time. Then you're also going to hear that, though, from December 19th, 2018, no one has heard from her. Chick-fil-A, where she worked, you're going to hear she never picked up her last 2 checks. A teenager, right before Christmas, never picking up her paychecks. Her phone, when she left Terry Parker High School on December 19th, her phone shows you it's turned off. Never heard from again. Banking with Navy Federal Credit Union. No banking activity post December 19th, 2018. Submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear from the family, her inner circle, her world. You're going to hear from her friends that she's known. She had a close-knit group of friends. You're going to hear from some of them. Nobody in the 16-year-old's circle, you will hear that no one has heard from her since December 19, 2018. So you're going to hear that missing persons started investigating this case on December the 21st, 2 days later. And then you're going to hear shortly thereafter, it went to homicide. And you're going to hear from Detective Billy Abbott. He was the one assigned to the case. But ladies and gentlemen, fast forwarding, this case, you were going to hear broke open because the defendant's biological brother called Jacksonville Sheriff's Office on January the 8th, 2019. You were going to hear from Joseph Quiles, his biological brother who lives in New York. Joseph Quiles called to tell JSO that his brother, the defendant, called him back in December 19th or 20th. He said he couldn't remember the exact date. And told him that the girl might be pregnant. I cannot lose my family. If she has the baby, I have to get rid of the body. Joseph Quiles is going to tell you that the defendant was having an inappropriate sexual relationship with his underage niece. He thought the baby could be his. The family was pressuring for the identity of the father. Asked about an abortion. The family did not want an abortion. The pressure is on. The defendant has her come to his work because he works at Ace Pick-A-Part. And you're going to see some photographs to kind of get an understanding. It is a large area off of North Main Street where people can come and get parts. They crush vehicles, have tires. Yes, you're going to hear there's video surveillance there, and you're going to see some of it. But guess what? The defendant knows that it doesn't capture everywhere. There are areas for the public, and there are areas just for employee personnel. The defendant says, I have her come to my work. I have her come to back area where no one can see her. This is what he tells Joseph Quiles. I submit you're going to hear. He tried to strangle her, but said he couldn't stomach it, so he shot her. Even when asked, well, how did no one hear that shot? Well, it's loud, all the machinery. Well, what did you do with your body? Joseph Quiles, again, does not know about Ace Pick-A-Part at all, ladies and gentlemen. Stated that his brother told him, I submit to you're going to hear, he put her body in a container, a dumpster that was being collected. And lo and behold, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear on December 20th, 2018, a dumpster was collected. That dumpster then was tracked to the Otis landfill. And you're going to hear that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office spent 16 tirelessly days there. However, it was a disadvantage already. The defendant said he killed her on or about between that 19th and the 20th. And when I say on or about, because, ladies and gentlemen, not only I submit you will hear from Joseph Quiles, you are going to hear that the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office homicide detectives put a wire on Morris McClendon. And George Jackson was present. And on the wire, that's also where I talked about those statements that I first started out with. And then the defense even asked in the wire submit to you, well, what if something happens with that container? The defendant talks about, well, I've got the elements to my advantage. It's been raining. And you will even see on the ACE video pick apart, it's raining. You'll see the defendant. He's going to be in a rain suit. Bright neon. Pretty easy to pick out. I'll submit to you. Again, make your own assumptions later. It's raining. It's the holiday time. And by the time detectives find out on the 8th, there's already been a couple of weeks. And I submit to you common sense, and you will hear from testimony, that garbage is piling up at that landfill. And by the time Jacksonville Sheriff's Office can get there and start, it's January 15th. Several days, couple weeks later. And you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, we own it. We did not find IS. However, there were items found at the landfill. Because what you're also going to hear is that IS liked the brand Victoria's Secret, and that she left with several items of her Victoria's Secret brand that she had. And there are a couple things that the family will point out, Kimberly Mobley and Iyana Sawyer, that is in fact IS's. But you're also, and you're going to hear about the firearm. The defendant talks about, I used my 9mm firearm. You're going to hear, I submit to you, you'll hear that in the wire. And he states, and so the same day, I also had to go and, fire the gun just in case. So Jacksonville Sheriff's Office goes to the gun gallery, and lo and behold, on 12/20/2018, the defendant came and shot his 9mm firearm. That 9mm firearm was taken, and it is in custody, and you all will see that during this case. Another thing, too, to think about is you are going to hear that Don Quay and parsley. And I submit parsley is a common thing that most people hear about for cooking, but a lot of people have not necessarily heard about Don Quay. We're going to hear that if a woman takes those two items, you're going to hear from Dr. Thomas. She also did the sexual assault examination of IS back in March of 2018. You are going to hear that those two items combined can make a woman have a miscarriage. And you are going to hear from SS that that's what was given to IS and SS in regards to the Don Quay and the parsley for IS to have a miscarriage. Because you're going to hear that there was a code name for the defendant. The code name for the defendant was Jose. That's how IS would refer to the romantic partner in her life, as Jose. But SS is going to tell you that Jose was in fact the defendant. Because when you even hear from IS's friends, they only knew the person to be Jose. They never knew who the person was either. This was a deep, guarded secret. But again, it was her uncle. And so what we're going to find out from those two items, they are found in the bedroom because IS and SS shared a bedroom. Now, what we're also going to learn, though, those two items were purchased on the defendant's Amazon account from their Wells Fargo bank account, was paid for in October of 2017. So again, going back to linking those items to the defendant. Now, the defendant talks about, I'll submit to you all, and the wire as well, about having an inappropriate sexual relationship with the defendant. In fact, at one point, even in the wire, I submit, you're going to hear, they ask, well, how did you manage to have sex with your wife around? And then the defendant's response, I submit that you will hear, just random spots. You know what I'm saying. Go to the store, in the car. And I submit to you this was going on during this 2018 year. Because there's another thing you're going to hear from SS. The defendant liked to talk to SS and IS on Snapchat. Not regular texting, not regular phone, but Snapchat. And SS is going to tell you the reason why is because Snapchat messages disappear. However, IS had more than one Snapchat account. She had XS Iyana. Iyana was a nickname of her first name. And then she had Princess 446. And ladies and gentlemen, submit to you that the defendant was using Princess 446 so nobody would know. And I submit to you, you're going to see these messages. And these messages are from 2018. And they show about the horrific sexual relationship the defendant was having with his niece. There will be indicators in those messages that it's clearly the defendant. You're going to hear about his wife, your mother, you're 16, you're going to go to college, can't believe you're pregnant, even telling her, I'll give you another child. So there's a lot, ladies and gentlemen, and obviously thinking about all of this too, you're going to hear from another inmate as well that says the defendant confessed to him. You're also going to hear that the defendant stated he never left work that day on December 19th, 2018. However, it's going to be refuted, I submit to you all. One, Ace video. The defendant leaves Ace at approximately 11:15 a.m. and is gone for about an hour and 15 minutes. And the time the IS leaves Terry Parker is about 11 a.m. And then you're also going to see that the defendant's timesheet also says that he never left that day. He told police that he never left work that day. But again, the physical evidence will refute that. So ladies and gentlemen, after you hear all the evidence, and again, it's going to be a lot, think about the dates, thinking about how each item, each person is bringing those puzzles to make that grand picture so we know what we're finally getting to. That defendant, again, with that statement of couldn't have her have the baby. Because you're also going to hear that all of defendant's children look just like him. He knew he couldn't take that risk. So the defendant, I submit to you after all the evidence, it will show that the defendant had an inappropriate sexual relationship with his 15 and 16-year-old niece, and that familial custodial relationship of him being the uncle, and that when she got pregnant, she wasn't having an abortion, and he knew the consequences of his actions. It was at that time to get rid of the evidence. However, thankfully, based upon the evidence we'll present, coupled with the defendant's own statements, his own words, we are confident that the state of Florida has proved each count beyond a reasonable doubt, and we will ask each of you to render a verdict of guilty to all counts. Thank you.